Highly intelligent people don't live in mental peace. They live in mental conflict. If you've ever felt like your mind is simultaneously your greatest gift and your heaviest burden, you're not alone, and you're not broken. Psychology reveals something most people misunderstand about intelligence. It doesn't simplify the mind. It multiplies it. While others see one path, you see 10. While others feel one emotion, you experience layers. While others make quick decisions, you're calculating consequences 3 steps ahead. This isn't about being smarter than others. It's about the invisible weight of thinking deeper, seeing more, and feeling the friction between what you know and what you feel. Over the next hour, we're diving into 50 psychological conflicts that research shows highly intelligent people struggle with, often completely in silence. Some of these will feel uncomfortably personal. That's the point. Because if you've ever wondered why your mind never seems to rest, why clarity and confusion coexist, or why knowing more sometimes feels like carrying more, this video was made for you. Let's begin. Jigsaw Part 1. Identity and Self-Perception. Conflict 1. Confidence versus self-doubt. Intelligent people often appear confident to others, but internally they're questioning everything. You know what you're capable of, yet doubt whether it's ever enough. Psychology calls this the competence-doubt paradox. The more you know, the more you realize how much you don't know, creating perpetual uncertainty about your own abilities. Conflict 2. Knowing your worth versus questioning it daily. You can rationally list your accomplishments, skills, and value. But emotionally, every morning feels like starting from zero. Research in cognitive psychology shows that intelligent individuals have heightened self-monitoring systems, meaning you're constantly reevaluating yourself against impossibly high internal standards. Conflict 3. Awareness versus self-criticism. Your self-awareness is razor-sharp. You see your flaws, mistakes, and patterns with painful clarity. While others might miss their shortcomings, you catalog yours. This hyper-awareness becomes a form of self-criticism that never sleeps. You don't need external judgment, you provide it constantly. Conflict 4. Humility versus underestimating yourself. You've learned to be humble, perhaps too well. While humility is admirable, intelligent people often cross into chronic self-minimization. You downplay achievements, dismiss compliments, and attribute success to luck. This isn't just modesty, it's a protective mechanism against the fear of being seen as arrogant, but it leaves you perpetually undervalued, especially to yourself. Conflict 5. Feeling capable but never enough. Here's the cruel irony. The more capable you become, the more you raise the bar for yourself. Every achievement is immediately followed by, but what's next? Or others have done better. Psychology identifies this as shifting baseline syndrome. Your definition of enough moves faster than your accomplishments, creating a permanent gap you can never close. Exploding Head Part 2. Thinking and Overthinking. Conflict 6. Clarity versus overanalysis. Your mind excels at breaking things down, seeing nuances, examining angles. But this gift becomes a trap. Simple decisions become complex investigations. Clear situations get clouded by overanalysis. You can see the forest, the trees, and every leaf, and that's exhausting. Conflict 7. Curiosity versus mental exhaustion. Your curiosity is insatiable. Every answer spawns 10 new questions. Every topic branches into subtopics. This intellectual hunger drives growth, but it also drives burnout. Your mind treats rest as wasted opportunity, turning curiosity into a relentless taskmaster. Conflict 8. Thinking deeply versus thinking too much. There's a razor-thin line between depth and obsession. You analyze conversations hours after they end, replay scenarios that haven't happened, examine motives and meanings. Deep thinking is your strength, but when does it cross into rumination that serves no purpose except to keep you awake at 2 a.m.? Conflict 9. Planning ahead versus living in the present. Intelligent minds are future-oriented. You're calculating risks, imagining outcomes, preparing for contingencies. But this constant forward thinking steals the present moment. while you're mentally living next week, next month, next year, right now passes unnoticed. Conflict 10. Understanding complexity versus craving simplicity. You understand that life is complex, nuanced, rarely black and white. You see the gray in everything. But part of you desperately wants simplicity, clear answers, obvious paths, straightforward solutions. The tension between accepting complexity and craving clarity creates constant mental friction. Red Part 3. Emotion vs. Logic. Conflict 11. Logic versus emotional reactions. You pride yourself on rational thinking, but emotions don't care about logic. You can intellectually understand why you shouldn't feel a certain way, yet the feeling persists. This creates a war between what you know and what you feel, leaving you frustrated with your own irrationality. Conflict 12. Understanding feelings versus feeling overwhelmed. Emotional intelligence means you can identify, name, and understand feelings, yours and others. But understanding doesn't equal control. You're emotionally literate yet emotionally overwhelmed, knowing exactly what you're feeling without knowing how to stop feeling it so intensely. Conflict 13. Empathy versus emotional burnout. Your empathy runs deep. You absorb others' emotions, understand their pain, feel their struggles. This makes you caring, but it also makes you exhausted. Empathy without boundaries becomes emotional labor that depletes you, especially when others don't realize the weight you're carrying for them. Conflict 14. Caring deeply versus needing emotional distance. You care intensely about people, causes, and outcomes, but caring this much is unsustainable. You need distance to recover, yet distance feels like abandonment or apathy. The pendulum swings between overinvolvement and self-protective withdrawal, never finding equilibrium. Conflict 15. Rational thinking versus irrational emotions. You can logically explain why something shouldn't bother you. You understand the cognitive distortions at play. You recognize the irrationality. And yet, the emotion remains. Intelligence doesn't grant immunity from feeling things that don't make logical sense. It just adds the frustration of knowing they don't make sense. Direct hit Part 4. Ambition and purpose. Conflict 16. High potential versus fear of wasting it. You're aware of your potential, and that awareness becomes pressure. What if you waste it? What if you choose wrong? What if you never fulfill what you're capable of? The gift of potential comes wrapped in the anxiety of squandering it. Conflict 17. Wanting mastery versus avoiding pressure. You want to be excellent, to truly master skills and subjects. But mastery requires pressure, criticism, failure, and persistence. The same mind that craves excellence also recoils from the discomfort required to achieve it, creating approach avoidance conflict. Conflict 18. Big goals versus daily burnout. Your goals are ambitious, expansive, meaningful. But daily life is full of mundane tasks, small setbacks, and slow progress. The gap between your vision and your current reality creates perpetual dissatisfaction. You're simultaneously inspired and exhausted by your own ambitions. Conflict 19. Passion versus sustainability. When you're passionate about something, you go all in, completely, obsessively, unsustainably. You burn bright and burn out. The challenge isn't finding passion, it's learning to maintain it at a pace that doesn't destroy you. Intelligent people often have an on-off switch with no middle ground. Conflict 20. Meaningful work versus mental peace. You need your work to matter. Meaningless tasks feel like soul death, but meaningful work is heavy, emotionally demanding, mentally consuming, often all-encompassing. You're torn between the fulfillment of purpose and the depletion it requires. Part 5. Social conflicts. Conflict 21. Wanting connection versus preferring solitude. You crave genuine connection and deep relationships, but social interaction is exhausting. You need solitude to recharge, yet too much isolation feels lonely. You're caught between two contradictory needs that both feel essential. Conflict 22. Feeling misunderstood versus not explaining yourself. People often don't get you, your thought processes, your depth, your perspective, and that's frustrating. But explaining yourself feels like work, like translating a language others don't speak. So you stay silent, misunderstood, wondering if being understood is even possible. Conflict 23. Adapting socially versus staying authentic. You're socially intelligent enough to adapt, to code switch, to fit in, to play the game. But every adaptation feels like a small betrayal of your authentic self. You can be who others expect, but it costs you. Being authentic risks isolation. Being adaptive risks losing yourself. Conflict 24. Listening more than speaking. You listen deeply, process thoroughly, and speak deliberately. But conversations move fast. By the time you've formulated a thoughtful response, the topic has shifted. You contribute less not because you have less to say, but because you have more to process before speaking. Conflict 25. Feeling different but not superior. You recognize you think differently than most people, but acknowledging that difference risks sounding arrogant. So you downplay it, pretend it's not there, or feel guilty for noticing it. You're different without being better, but the distinction feels impossible to communicate. Brain Part 6. Awareness and existence. Conflict 26. Awareness versus happiness. The more you understand about how the world works, systems, patterns, flaws, the harder it becomes to be simply happy. Ignorance might not be bliss, but awareness certainly isn't either. You see too much to be carefree, understand too much to be naive. Conflict 27. Understanding reality versus enjoying it. You can analyze why moments are meaningful, why experiences feel good, how psychology and chemistry create emotions. But that analytical lens sometimes prevents immersion. You understand the mechanism but lose the magic. Conflict 28. Seeing patterns versus losing wonder. Your pattern recognition is exceptional. You see connections, predict outcomes, understand systems. But patterns become predictable, and predictability erodes wonder. When you can see how things work, they stop being surprising. Conflict 29. Knowing too much versus feeling at ease. Every piece of knowledge you gain about risks, problems, and complexities makes ease more difficult. You're aware of what could go wrong, what others miss, what dangers lurk beneath surfaces. This awareness is protective, but prevents the luxury of feeling fully at ease. Conflict 30. Depth versus lightheartedness. You think deeply about everything, conversations, movies, experiences, life itself. But sometimes you just want to be light, superficial, carefree. The conflict isn't that you can't, it's that your mind won't let you stay there. Depth keeps pulling you back down. Balance Part 7. Decision-making. Conflict 31. Exploring options versus committing to one. Your mind excels at generating options. Every decision branches into possibilities. But exploration delays commitment, and commitment requires closing doors. You're caught between wanting to make the best choice and fearing that commitment means missing something better. Conflict 32. Fear of wrong decisions versus fear of no decision. You fear making the wrong choice, one that wastes time, potential, or opportunity. But you equally fear making no decision, staying stuck in analysis paralysis. Both fears are valid, both create anxiety, neither can be eliminated. Conflict 33. Long-term thinking versus short-term action. You naturally think long-term, consequences, trajectories, compound effects. But life requires short-term action. The gap between where you are and where you want to be feels overwhelming when you're constantly calculating the distance. Conflict 34. Perfection versus progress. You see how things could be perfect, the optimal approach, the ideal execution, the flawless result. But perfection is slow, often impossible, and paralyzes progress. You're torn between doing it right and just doing it, knowing that done imperfectly beats not done at all, yet unable to fully embrace that truth. Conflict 35. Preparation versus procrastination. You tell yourself you're preparing, researching more, planning better, waiting for the right moment. But preparation becomes procrastination disguised as productivity. The line between due diligence and avoidance is blurry, and you're not always sure which side you're on. ZZZ Part 8. Energy and rest. Conflict 36. Mental stimulation versus mental rest. Your mind craves stimulation, new information, interesting problems, intellectual challenge. But it also desperately needs rest. The conflict is that when you rest, you feel understimulated. When you're stimulated, you become exhausted. There's no sweet spot. Conflict 37. Wanting silence versus noisy thoughts. You want mental silence, internal quiet, a moment without thought. But your mind doesn't have an off switch. Even in silence, thoughts generate thoughts. You want stillness in a mind that's hardwired for motion. Conflict 38. Needing alone time versus feeling isolated. Solitude is essential for your well-being, time to think, process, recharge. But too much isolation starts feeling like loneliness. You need people, but also need breaks from people, and finding the balance feels like threading a needle. Conflict 39. Creativity versus mental fatigue. Creative thinking energizes you, making connections, generating ideas, problem solving. But creativity is mentally demanding. The same process that excites you also exhausts you. You want to create without depleting yourself, but creativity doesn't work that way. Conflict 40. Learning constantly versus burnout. You're a perpetual learner. There's always something new to understand, a skill to develop, knowledge to acquire. But constant learning is exhausting. You're accumulating knowledge faster than you can process it, growing, but also burning out from the relentless pace. Brain Part 9. Self-expectation. Conflict 41. High standards versus self-compassion. Your standards are high for work, behavior, growth, everything. These standards drive excellence but prevent self-compassion. When you fall short, and you always fall short of impossible standards, you're harsh with yourself. Self-kindness feels like lowering the bar. Conflict 42. Knowing your limits versus pushing them. You're self-aware enough to recognize your limits, mental, emotional, physical. But you also believe in growth, in expanding capacity, in pushing boundaries. So you push past limits, ignore signals, and override your own wisdom, telling yourself growth requires discomfort. Conflict 43. Intelligence vs. emotional vulnerability. Intelligence makes you good at understanding, explaining, and analyzing. But vulnerability requires dropping the analytical armor and just feeling. Your intelligence becomes a defense mechanism against vulnerability, protecting you, but also isolating you. Conflict 44. Being self-aware versus being self-critical. Self-awareness is supposed to be healthy, but yours has become weaponized against you. Every flaw is cataloged, every mistake remembered, every weakness examined. Self-awareness has become self-surveillance, and the line between growth and self-punishment has disappeared. Conflict 45. Understanding others versus neglecting yourself. You're perceptive about others, their needs, feelings, motivations. You understand people deeply. But this outward focus means you neglect yourself. You're tuned into everyone except you, knowing others better than you know yourself. Milky Way Part 10. Existential conflicts. Conflict 46. Meaning versus uncertainty. You need life to have meaning, purpose, direction. But the universe doesn't provide clear answers. You're searching for certainty in an uncertain world, trying to construct meaning in the face of ambiguity, and the tension between need and reality is exhausting. Conflict 47. Freedom versus responsibility. Intelligence grants you freedom to choose, to understand options, to create your path. But freedom is heavy. Every choice is your responsibility. You can't blame ignorance or circumstance. Freedom and responsibility are inseparable, and the weight of both is immense. Conflict 48. Acceptance versus improvement. Part of you wants to accept things as they are: yourself, life, circumstances. Acceptance brings peace. But another part refuses to accept, insists on improvement, growth, change. You're torn between the serenity of acceptance and the drive for improvement. Conflict 49. Thinking about life versus living it. You spend so much time thinking about life, analyzing it, understanding it, planning it, that you forget to actually live it. You're perpetually one step removed, observing rather than experiencing, thinking rather than being. Conflict 50, depth versus peace. This is the ultimate conflict. Depth of thought, feeling, and understanding is your nature, but depth is turbulent. Peace exists in the shallow waters, and you can visit but never stay. You're built for depth, but you long for peace, and the two rarely coexist. Brain psychology reveal. Here's what psychology reveals about all of this. Intelligent minds don't struggle because something is wrong with them. They struggle because they see more, feel more, process more, and think deeper than most. Research in cognitive psychology, neuroscience, and personality studies consistently shows that intelligence correlates with heightened sensitivity, deeper processing, and greater internal conflict. This isn't a bug. It's not a flaw in your design. It's a side effect of depth. The conflicts you experience aren't problems to solve. They're tensions to manage, to live within, to accept as part of who you are. Your mind isn't broken because it won't be quiet. Your emotions aren't wrong because they don't follow logic. Your struggles aren't signs of failure, they're signs of complexity. And complexity, while exhausting, is also what makes you capable of extraordinary understanding, creativity, and insight. The goal isn't to eliminate conflict. It's to stop treating conflict as evidence that something is wrong with you. If this video felt uncomfortably personal, it's because these conflicts aren't abstract concepts. They're your daily reality. Intelligent people don't feel smart most of the time. They feel mentally occupied. They feel the weight of thinking too much, feeling too deeply, and seeing too clearly. They feel the exhaustion of minds that never fully rest. And here's what matters. You're not alone in this. Every conflict described in this video is shared by millions of people who think like you do. People who are tired of pretending their minds are simple. People who carry the same invisible weight. So here's my question for you, and I genuinely want to know. Backhand index pointing down, which of these 50 conflicts feels like your daily battle? Which one made you pause and think, that's exactly what I've been trying to explain but couldn't find the words? Drop a number in the comments, just the number. Let's see which conflicts resonate most. And if your mind never truly switches off, if you're someone who lives in these tensions every single day, this channel was created for minds like yours. Subscribe if you want more content that doesn't simplify, doesn't sugarcoat, and doesn't pretend that intelligence makes life easier. Because we both know it doesn't. It makes life richer, deeper, and infinitely more complex. And that's worth understanding. I'll see you in the next video.